This is Join Us in France, episode 231. Bonjour, I'm Annie Sargent, and I'm happy to be with you today. On today's episode, Janice Chung of France Travel Tips talks to me about her wonderful visit to Etretat. That's Etretas. That's in Normandy. Janice knows France really well. She's visited dozens of times, and she's been on this podcast twice. In episode 86, where she talked to me about looking for unusual experiences in France, which included running both the Paris and the Bordeaux marathons, and also on episode 168 about Loire Valley chateaus you shouldn't skip, and she's seen almost all of them, so I love talking to her about that. But today we're talking about Normandy and Etretat in particular. Etretat has a beautiful beach with stone arches reaching into the water. When you see the picture, I'm sure you'll recognize it. It's really gorgeous. But what is it like when you visit? Janice shares her experience with great flair as usual. Show notes and photos for this episode are on joinusinfrance.com/231. There will not be a new episode of the podcast next Sunday, May 5th, 2019, because I'll be in Paris. Well, actually, I'll be in Giverny, taking a small group to Giverny and enjoying Monet's gardens. So I'll be back with a new episode on May 12th, 2019. And you can still get a ticket to join me on the Montmartre or Père Lachaise tour on May, well, actually, there's 4 of them left. But that's May 7th and May 8th, 2019. To book that and to look at the details, go to addictedtofrance.com. And I won't be offering these half-day walking tours in Paris going forward because I don't live in Paris. And the dates you ask me about rarely work out. This week alone, I had to turn down a dozen listeners who really would like to join me on a walking tour, but it's on a date where, I can't be in Paris. Your dates are all over the calendar, and it's a big ask for me to go to Paris. I can't go for just 2 or 3 people. That's the reality of things. So I would love to show you around, but I can't do it that way. So what I'm going to do instead is something that will work no matter what day you'll be in Paris. I am developing GPS-aware walking tours. Those work with a free app that you can get either for your iPhone or Android. And you choose the area of Paris that you want me to guide you in. You pay a few dollars for the tour. It's not that expensive. And I give you a meeting point. Once you're at the meeting point, I start talking to you. You can put your phone in your pocket and I guide you with my voice. There's a map, including in the app as well, but you really shouldn't need to look at it. And of course, I tell you about all the cool things around you that I think you need to know about. And I had just finished writing the Ile de la Cité walking tour when the Notre Dame fire happened. And since about 20% of the Ile de la Cité tour takes place around Notre Dame, I need to see the situation on the ground, see for myself what's accessible, what is not, and modify the tour accordingly. So when I come back from Paris, middle of May, I'll release soon after the Ile de la Cité smartphone walking tour. And going forward, I'll release more. I'm planning on Le Marais, Saint-Germain-des-Prés, Latin Quarter, Montmartre, all the places that most people want to learn about. And I will spend a lot of my time going forward writing these walking tours, which will be essentially the same tours I give in person. I think they'll be actually better because I won't forget to mention some things. So, for all of you that I have turned down for an in-person walking tour, you will be able to get a GPS-aware walking tour and take me with you to Paris. There will be lots more info on that soon, and I hope that will be a better way to handle this. Agnes, welcome back to Join Us in France.
Oh, thank you, Annie. Thanks for having me back. I have to start by saying I love your podcast.
Thank you so much.
Even though I've traveled to France a lot, I continually listen to it because it gives me ideas of where else I can go.
Well, that's true because we talk to so many different people and they all have great suggestions.
Yes.
So,
and the Facebook group has been invaluable.
Yeah, it's also very helpful. Lots of people, lots of very knowledgeable people so that's specifically the Facebook closed group. So if you're looking for it in the search box in Facebook, type Join Us in France closed group. There's also a page, but there's not much interaction on the page.
Yeah, but it's a great group.
Yeah. All right, so today we are talking about an area in Normandy that I have never visited. So I'm looking forward to learning about it. It's Etretat.
Right.
And you were there recently.
Yes, I was there in July. So for many years, actually, let me go back. So when I first started falling in love with France, obviously Mont Saint-Michel was one of the places I wanted to visit.
Right.
And then once I visited that, okay, what is striking to me? And it's Etretat. And it took me many trips because it's not it's like not near Paris. It's not in Provence. And it is in Normandy. But most people, when they think of Normandy, they think of the D-Day beaches.
Correct.
And this is much further northeast of that area. So my guess would be a lot of people visit the D-Day beaches, but they don't head northeast,
right?
Which is a shame because this is an area that I'm now in love with it, especially because of Etretat.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah, it's one that's been on my list for a long time. But, I live in Toulouse, so that's kind of a long way. It's not like I can go for a weekend or something. I guess I could if I flew, but it would take a while. That's probably why most people don't make it there, is because it's not on their, must-see list.
Right. And to be honest, it's about 2.5 hours west of Paris. So it's not that close. And it's not like you could take a train to Etretat.
So how did you get there?
I drove. Okay. So after I visited Provence, I took the train back to Paris, stayed a night, and then rented another car and drove.
Okay.
And I don't know where the nearest train station would be. Honfleur, maybe?
Honfleur or Caen?
Yeah, that's kind of west.
Right.
You need a car, without a doubt.
Yeah.
And it's very beneficial to have a car because there's so much to see. Not just in between Etretat and Paris, but also along the coast. So you need it.
Okay. Yeah, there are a lot of places in France where I say you don't need a car, but there are also places where if you want to get there and enjoy it truly, you need a car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm about to go to Nice, and I'm going to try to do it without a car because I know Nice has a lot of trains and bus and stuff that I can go to a lot of interesting places. We'll see. We'll see how we do. And I can always, get rent a car if I need to.
Sure.
Just a sec. Let me see what's happening with my dogs. You never know, dogs.
I just closed my door in case my cat would come in and he'll meow.
Well, I also have a cat, but the cat's very quiet. So, it's the dogs that make all the noise around here. Anyway, so when were you in Etretat?
The second week in July, and I stayed a week.
Okay.
Which was a great amount of time. Like, I actually did excursions from that town. But I rented an Airbnb so that, and the location could not have been better. First of all, it had free parking. And if I went through the back, I could get into town within 5 minutes.
Oh, that's nice.
So one of my I had looked into, maybe I won't stay in Etretat because I was having a hard time finding a place, hotel-wise. And I thought, you know what, I'll do Airbnb, and it's close. I left my car there for the days that, I wandered into town.
Sure.
And it was just so convenient. The place I stayed at, the house had been built in the late 1800s. It's on the same property as the owners. So she and her husband were right next door.
Oh, that's very good.
Yeah, she only spoke French, which was good for me because it made me practice my French, right? She could not have been a better host. Well, actually, she was a super host, and Airbnb has those designations. They have to have high ratings, fast response. They're evaluated every 3 months, that kind of thing.
Right, they do a good job.
So this was a large house. I mean, it had 3 floors, it had a bedroom, 2 beds, that kind of thing. But she was fabulous because she gave me dining recommendations, and she's the one who told me, oh, there are fireworks. I probably knew that. There are fireworks in Etretat on July 13th, but she also mentioned on July 14th, La Fête Nationale, Bastille Day, that is in many other places like, okay, I'm not going to pronounce, Le Havre?
Le Havre, yeah.
Le Havre, right. So she was very helpful. I mean, even when I was, I contacted her and I said, look, I can't book a dinner reservation at this place. So she recommended some other places, which was fabulous.
Oh, that's very nice. That's good. Yeah. And so we'll put a link to that particular Airbnb in the show notes. But of course, with Airbnb, you never know if it's going to be available when you go. Sometimes they're not renting anymore, or sometimes it's already booked or whatever. But I'll put the link in the show notes because that's very helpful that it was somebody who was so good.
Mm-hmm. The other bonus about that place was that it was quiet. I mean, Etretat can be a very touristy, busy place, and so therefore it can get crowded and noisy.
Yeah. And it's mostly French tourists, I would assume, or Europeans anyway, right? Who know about this?
I guess so. Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
but
it's hard to tell.
Yeah,
but it's a fabulous place, and every time I look at my photos, I go, yeah, I could go back there because it's so stunning. So, you cannot take a bad photo.
Oh, that's good. Not being able to take a bad photo is a big plus for me.
Oh, trust me, I kept visiting the cliffs. So Etretat is known for their falaises, which is the cliffs, kind of like the White Cliffs of Dover. Mm-hmm. And the town is right on the water's edge, and to the south is the Falaise d'Aval. And it's just, these are beautiful cliffs that also have ports or arches that make them even more spectacular. Right. And then to the north of Etretat is Chapelle Notre-Dame de la Gare, and it was built in the 1950s, and it sits on top of Falaise d'Amont.
Yeah.
And the cliff, and also right there's another arch, the Port d'Amont. So that's what's striking about this town, is that it's surrounded by these white cliffs.
Yeah. And so would you recommend it mostly for people who like to hike, for people with children? Maybe is it romantic? What sort of...
I think all three. You don't have to be a hiker. I mean, what I did the first full day that I was there, I took a hike. It was more of a walk. I mean, it's not like you need hiking shoes. You probably should wear running shoes around the golf course.
Okay. And
then it takes you kind of more south of Etretat. So you can see another port, which is called Manipur. Okay. And so you see Manipur and the Falaise d'Aval, and you get some spectacular views. When I went at 9 a.m, there was hardly anyone out there.
I bet.
And July the weather could not have been more beautiful. It was low to mid 20s.
Oh, that's good.
Celsius. And, of course, when you're near the ocean, it's a bit cooler. So it's perfect because there was a heat wave going through France back in June, July, and August.
But not in Normandy.
No. I mean, it was still warm at times, but
Right.
boy, it was beautiful.
Oh, that's good. That's great. Yeah, July would probably be a good time to go to Normandy. I would assume, or early August would be also very good.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, the danger about going, and I remember years ago, I texted someone, I said, so what's it like in March? She said, oh, no, too windy, cold, rainy, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's still beautiful, but it's not as ideal.
Yes, exactly. So, you know, in going back to your question, it's an easy walk. I took my time. I mean, really took my time stopping, taking photos, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it took me about 2 hours. Mm-hmm. My Airbnb actually started at the beginning of the path. Oh. So that was very convenient because it was right next to the golf course. So you go over to the golf course, and you can imagine if you play golf. Of course, I didn't bring my golf clubs. The view would be spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
So you can do the walk, and most people actually get up to the top of the cliffs from the boardwalk, and there's a path and stairs. So I would think that the majority of the people do that, which is a shame, because I think unless they're going to head more south, they'll miss Manipur. They'll miss some of the open scenery.
Okay, so explain that again, because I'm not sure I understood what you were saying. So you should do it with a hike, that little hike, instead of taking stairs.
Well, I would do both.
Okay.
And especially if you're going to be there a few days. So what happens is, if you take it from the golf course, you're swooping around the golf course and you end up at the cliff.
Okay.
And then you walk along the cliff towards the town. And then you can walk down the stairs into the town.
Ah.
But most people start in the town, go up the stairs to the cliffs.
I see.
I hope.
I see.
There's two ways to get to the cliffs. One from the golf course and the other from the main center of town.
Okay. But you think going from the golf course, you get better views?
Oh, yeah. Of course, at the beginning, if you come from town, it's much more crowded.
Of course.
Because everybody's heading from that direction.
Right. Well, and the stairs are the steps are, there's probably a lot of steps. I don't know. It seems like it's a high cliff.
Yeah. And the other thing to really note is there aren't a lot of barriers. So, of course, there are warning signs that say, be very careful because you can fall over.
Yeah.
I mean, the pictures at times I would shimmy down on my bum to get closer to the edge because I was so scared I might fall over, right?
Right. Yeah, that's the safe way to do it. If you're going to do something crazy, do it shimmying down on your bottom.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, of course, I didn't even get too close.
Right.
And, of course, you meet people along the walk and they take pictures of you. You take pictures of them, that kind of thing.
Right.
So go ahead.
So there's two beautiful aiguilles, right? The beautiful arches. So one is... I don't know. I'm asking. I'm trying to understand how this works.
I know one... I'm not going to pronounce it right. Aiguille? Aiguille, right, which is kind of like a rock jutting out of the water.
Oh, yes. And that's just a pointy thing towards the sky.
Right. But beside them are those arches, the ports.
Okay. And both arches are close to one another? Kind
of. Okay. Yeah. I mean, if you turn one way, you'll get a photo of that one. If you turn the other way, you'll get a photo of Port Daval.
Okay. Now I think I understand. See, it's hard to picture it when you haven't been, because I've seen a ton of photos, but exactly the lay of the land, I guess I could have, looked on Google Maps or something, which I didn't do. I just looked at some photos.
Yeah. And that, those arches, go quite high. They're about 40 to 50 meters high. And that rock that sticks out of the water, it looks like a needle.
Right.
And when I was fooling around with my photography, I was trying to pose the needle in between the port. But it's very difficult to do. But anyways.
And when you say port, you don't mean a port with boats. You mean the kind of the arch.
Port. Yes, arch.
Yes. Yeah, because they're called Porte d'Aval and Porte de... je sais pas quoi.
Damont.
Damont, yeah, Falaise Damont.
Which is in the north. And then there's Manaport, which is also in the south. But that's further. It's not... it is well known, but not as much as the other two that I've mentioned.
Okay.
So, I mean, these became famous too because, there was a famous author who wrote about this whole area. Guy de Maupassant.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He lived in Etretat, and he wrote, I think, a story or a book. A story called Une vie, a life.
Oh, yeah, Une vie. I have read that. I read it in high school. I forgot about it, but...
Oh, okay. Well, he supposedly describes an elephant's trunk.
Okay.
Dipping into the English Channel in Etretat. And there's big controversy because I tried to do research. Was it Porte d'Amont or Porte d'Aval? So it's always fun when you look at these rocks or ports or arches and you go, okay, does that look like an elephant?
Is that the elephant trunk?
Yeah, an elephant's trunk. So that's the fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's nice. Okay, so how long would you dedicate to seeing these falaises and portes and all that? Can you see it all in a day or maybe a day and a half?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because what you could do, let's say you start from the town, you walk up to the cliffs on the south side. So if you're standing looking at the water, you're going up the left-hand side. Then you could come back down and go up the right-hand side, which is the Falaise d'Amont. And on that cliff, there's a bit more to see. There's the chapel that I mentioned, which Chapel Notre-Dame de la Gare. And there's also a monument that honors these two French pilots who were heading to North America and they disappeared. Oh. They were last seen over Etretat. I think this was in 1927.
Oh, so this was early aviation.
Yes, exactly. And so a monument was created, and unfortunately the Nazis destroyed it. So another one was created, and it looks like it's called Whitebird. So l'oiseau blanc. Yeah. And it's actually quite beautiful because it basically looks like a bird, a beak, taking off.
Very nice.
And it was 1962. Yeah. It's very white arrow, let's say, pointing to America. So there's a bit more to see other than just beautiful views, and they are spectacular. There's another path that you can walk more north. It's okay. It's not the most exciting, but it is nice. There's also a garden, so you could just do that in one day. Okay. If you really wanted to pack in your day, and I'm not into rushing to see all these things. So in another day, I actually visited the Jardin d'Etretat. And these are beautiful gardens, but they're not your typical, flowers and that kind of thing. It's very artistic. There was a French actress who, I guess, commissioned a gardener to create this garden. She got inspiration from Claude Monet, who lived in Etretat. And in 2006, yeah. Oh. Yeah. Which is why I should point out, when you're in Etretat and you're walking along the boardwalk, there are all these placards or signposts, and they will show pictures of his works of art. there was one I think he did, Coucher du Soleil Etretat. And so it's positioned in a place you can see the real thing and you can see how Monet painted it.
Oh, that must be nice.
Yeah, it is. So in this garden, it was only opened in 2016, and it is really whimsical. For example, how am I going to describe this? Imagine a tree, and it has a wind-up handle. And you can actually turn the handle, and it plays music. Or there's another section called Le Jardin Émotion, emotions. And they're these sculptures of different faces. I know this sounds weird. Your listeners are going to go, why would I want to visit? It's really unique. There are these sculptures made of twigs of people hugging trees. And it was the Tree Hugger Project. I know it sounds really weird, but the best.
Well,
and I don't know
it happened. Not so long ago, I was walking my dogs, and from a distance, I saw something up against a big tree. And, I walk pretty much the same path every day. And I'm like, oh, no, did somebody dump, like, an old piece of furniture or something? Because it happens. People dump stuff on this dirt road. No, it was a person hugging a tree. And he stood there hugging the tree for a long time, And I was like, okay.
Hold it.
Huh?
A real person?
It was a real person. It was a human person, live person, hugging a tree. You hear of tree huggers, but I had never seen it. And I thought, well, I really didn't want to embarrass him because I don't know, if I hugged a tree and somebody walked up to me, I would be embarrassed. I don't know. Maybe that's...
Well, these...
Yeah.
Yeah. These aren't... Shall I say so bizarre? They're actually very attractive looking. They're made out of twigs. It was done by a Polish artist. And so you can see a number of his sculptures. And the one that he did, and I don't know if you'll put this on your website, I sent you the photo. It's a tribute to Monet. It's made out of twigs. So it's a sculpture of Monet made of twigs, and you can see him painting. And in the background is the Etretat, one of the cliffs that he's painting.
Nice.
And I love the photo because it's so beautiful. Here's Monet painting with the cliffs, the Falaises d'Etretat in the background.
Oh, very nice. Yes, I'll make sure to put it on the website. So on the website, I'm also going to put your very, very good notes because you have a lot of specific recommendations. I mean, some places you give the name of like you say, it's the D940 road and take this path and the name of the path and all of that. So I will put all of that as your guest notes because that's really precious for people who want to do this trip also.
Yeah, because on my website, I actually have not an itinerary, but pretty much like that. Every trip I've taken, I try to provide detailed notes on what I saw, perhaps how you get there, that kind of thing.
Right. And your site is France Travel Tips, and it's excellent. And I recommend people visit it because you do have very judicious tips. You don't go to all the places everybody goes, No. You try to go off the beaten track. And it's wonderful to me because you actually find... and I had a little bit of a rant about this with cafes last week. People who ask for the best cafe, but totally unique. I'm like, well... Yeah. No, it doesn't work that way. But you get that, right? You get that in France. I mean, you can't go to the most touristy village in Provence and expect to be the only person there. I mean, it's just not going to happen.
Right. That was a great post. So when I go running, I always listen to your podcast. Yeah. It's great. What was I going to say? Yes, I mean, the reason I started my website was because I wanted to write about unique experiences. Everybody, you can look at the top 10 guides and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But I like to seek out. I mean, this is what makes my traveling a little more interesting.
Yeah.
By seeking out those unique places and experiences.
Right. And it makes all the difference that you get to experience, the less traveled by. I mean, it's not like Etretat is a big secret or anything, but it's c'est pas la place Saint-Michel à Paris non plus.
Well, it's funny. You mentioned a lot of people, yes, do visit Etretat. And after I had walked along the cliffs, I thought, okay, I see a boat. I wonder if I should take a boat trip down. And I really debated with myself, you've seen the cliffs, come on. And I finally I spoke to the tourist office, and they recommended that I go to Fécamp to take the tour from there. Fécamp is about, 16, 17 kilometers north of Etretat.
I see. So you go off a little ways and then get a boat.
Yes. And what they do is they take you on a speed boat. I have to point that out because this is not a leisurely cruise down, down the channel. It was bumpy.
Yeah, like all speedboats, it's bumpy.
Yeah. The guide actually said, if you think you're going to get sick, I have paper bags.
Wow.
The good news was it wasn't that bad because I get seasick very easily. But so in hindsight, I am absolutely very, very happy that I did take this tour.
Oh, it's always good to go see this, go see it from the ocean. Yes, it's always good.
You can't get the same perspectives. Even on the beach, I mentioned I was trying to take a picture of that needle behind the port, behind the arch. Couldn't, because I'd have to go in the water.
Right.
So, and this tour took us very close to the port. I mean, the only other way is if you rented a kayak.
Right.
Which a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm. You can do that too. Okay.
Yeah. But it was a really nice way to see the whole coastline.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would have done that too. I think boat tours are great.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he only spoke French, but he did hand out an English description of what we were going to see. So that was fine.
Right. And you speak French anyway. I mean.
Yeah. I mean, it's when they speak too fast. I have that deer in the headlights, look.
I'm familiar.
So I have to work on my comprehension.
That's all right. I think you do fine.
But anyways, I highly recommend not just taking the walk or the hike, but also doing the speedboat tour.
So did you see any slower boats, or is it just a speedboat or kayak?
I think I might have looked into it, but there really wasn't anything.
Okay, yeah, that's possible.
Other than speedboat tours, and I could be wrong. So so that's what I did.
Well,
and
if you tell your kids, let's go on a speedboat tour, they're going to be excited. If you tell them, let's go on a little, slow boat.
And it'll take you longer.
Right.
And plus, the tour company that I used got really good reviews. So that obviously impacted my decision.
Yeah. So it's called La Mer pour tous. And I'll put it on the website. It'll be noted on the website. Very good.
Yeah. Something I should mention, I mentioned about the kayaks. One of the other dangers besides falling off the cliff is getting caught in the tide. And supposedly over 50 people have died this way.
Wow.
Because what they do is they walk under the arches, and then the tide comes in very quickly.
Right.
So if you see people, sadly, I think there are still people who will walk out there, but there are also people who jump out of their kayak and, lie on the beach for a while. So that's understandable. But you got to be so careful.
Right. Because sometimes the tides are very high and very fast. And it depends. Another day it could be very calm and very slow. It just depends.
Right. But it can be very dangerous too.
Yeah. Especially with people with kids.
Yeah. So in terms of, how many days, I mean, as I said, I was there a week. I did visit the cliffs a few times because I just couldn't get enough. Mm-hmm. But I did do excursions, and I should point out one of the reasons I was there was to celebrate La Fête Nationale. Now, as I mentioned, the fireworks were actually July 13th.
That's often the case.
Yes, exactly. The Normandy Tourist Board actually publishes a list of all the towns that will have fireworks on either July 13th or the 14th. Mm-hmm. So it's very, very handy.
Yeah.
So, of course, I was there, and the Airbnb hostess gave me recommendations where to have dinner.
Yeah.
So if your listeners are interested in seeing the fireworks on the 13th, I'm going to assume every year it's the 13th, but who knows?
Probably it is.
You don't necessarily have to do what I did, which is get a reservation at a restaurant right on the boardwalk. And the reason I say that is, so I got there 8:30. The fireworks don't start until quite late. I think it was 10:30 or 11 o'clock.
Yeah, it's usually 11.
Yeah, because it's quite light until late at night.
Yes. In the summer it is. July 14th or 13th it would be.
Right. But, I mean, it's very nice. I sat on the terrace. It was a covered terrace, had dinner there. But then after dinner, I decided, you know what? I'll go to the boardwalk just outside the restaurant to actually see the fireworks. So there are two places that you can see the fireworks. One is from the boardwalk or from the beach. Now, I have to point out, this is not a sandy beach. Imagine 2 to 3 inch size pebbles, rocks. So it's not soft to sit on. Yeah. But there were hundreds of people sitting out there, with their blankets, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But the boardwalk was not overly crowded.
Okay.
Which was wonderful, and it was the perfect place to watch the fireworks because they're done in such a way that they light up the Port d'Aval, the cliffs. And Annie, it was spectacular.
I believe you. And the photo you sent me is beautiful. I'll put it on the website.
Yeah, and even if you're not there for the fireworks, every night they light up the cliffs. So it's still stunning.
Yeah.
But the fireworks are great. And, they don't last 25 minutes, but you're wowed.
Yeah. Well, 25 minutes is a good amount of time for fireworks.
Right. So I highly recommend that. Because my birthday is on July 14th, it was really special to me.
That's nice. That's a nice place. Know. That's a nice plus.
Maybe, and maybe that's why I love France so much, right?
Could be. Yeah, because you've been here many times, right? Was it Visit 25 or something?
I'm 31.
31, wow.
And then I was back in October, so that's 32, and then I'm going again in May.
Wow. You should just move here.
I know, everybody says that, but...
But you love Canada.
Yeah, I do.
You love both.
Yeah, so on July 14th, what am I going to do to celebrate my birthday? So, as I mentioned, the Airbnb hostess had recommended Le Havre. And I almost was going to go, and then I changed my mind. And for a number of reasons. Anyways, I decided I'll go to Honfleur.
Oh, yeah, Honfleur. Yeah, you can't beat Honfleur.
Well, except it was a mistake. It was so crowded. I ended up parking a couple of kilometers outside of the town.
That's true. It's July 14th. It's going to be super crowded.
Yeah. It was so packed. And I've been there before, but a long time ago.
Right.
When it wasn't crowded, that was a much nicer time. So I actually did not stay. I debated, am I going to stay or not? And I headed back to Etretat, and I had some Calvados clep. So it's basically Calvados liqueur with ice cream on a clep with the rosé wine. That's how I celebrated my birthday.
Very good. Very good.
I just wasn't prepared to fight the crowds.
Yeah, and that happens a lot. Very touristy places. Honfleur is super touristy. Carcassonne on July 14th is like murder. You cannot pay me enough to go. It's like just a sea of people. And no, I'm...
Yeah,
no.
it's not worth it. So I was really happy with my decision. Oh, the other reason I decided not to stay is I really did not think anything could top the fireworks at Etretat.
Yeah.
I've seen fireworks at the Pont de Gare. I've seen them. Have I seen them in Paris? Can't remember. Yeah, probably. And just those cliffs being illuminated by the fireworks, nothing can beat that.
Better than the Pont du Gard, huh?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Pont de Gare was pretty good.
Yeah.
And I was there a couple of years ago for a sound and light show. And it was pretty spectacular, but I don't know. Those cliffs are beautiful.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. So it looks like you have some restaurant recommendations.
Oh, right. So my Airbnb hostess had recommended the Dormy Hotel. Now, the Dormy Hotel sits on the cliff, and it was right around the corner from where I was staying. She said, it can be expensive, but go for lunch or go for a drink. So one day, without a reservation, I went there and said, could I have a table? Mm-hmm. Yes, no problem. Now, this was the second week in July. It might have been luck, who knows? Mm-hmm. So I got a table outside overlooking the cliffs, and the price of the meal was not that bad. I mean, I got the prefix A, and a glass of wine, and I can't, like 32 euros or something like that.
Was this lunch or dinner?
Lunch.
Right. So that's that sounds very reasonable. That sounds like, cuisine soignée. Typically, you will pay with no wine or drink. It'll be 30 and can go up to, 35, 40 if you're getting some wine. And it sounds like a normal price outside of Paris.
Right. I mean, I would even recommend for your listeners, just go for a drink. They have these lounge chairs. Mm-hmm. So it's certainly acceptable to just go for a drink.
Sure. Lovely.
Food was traditional, but lovely presentation.
Very good.
So
that was
good.
Dormy House.
Yeah, Dormy. Mm-hmm. So it's also a hotel. It's a hotel restaurant.
Okay.
And then the other place, the one by the boardwalk, was Le Homard Bleu. So the blue lobster, basically.
Yep.
And, what's interesting is I made a reservation only 4 days before my dinner on the 13th. And so I was very fortunate to sit on the terrace, and, it was about just over 40 euros for, wine, oysters, the prefix A. Mm-hmm. Which was seafood. I wasn't crazy about my fish. The fish soup was great. Mm-hmm. And then, one thing I should point out, I don't know if your listeners know this, but Normandy is known for apples, and certainly the area that I was in. Yeah. Big apple region. So one of the desserts was like an apple tart from
Sure.
the region. You'll find apple products everywhere. Right. So I'm in heaven. I love apples. So those are the two of the restaurants that I frequented. That were fun.
Very good.
Yeah.
So did you do? You talked about doing excursions out of there. Where else did you go see?
So I visited some towns that are part of the Route des Abbés. Between Paris and Paris and Etretat, there's a route that you can take, and there are a whole bunch of these abbeys, cathedrals, that are quite impressive. So there were some nearby. Lilleborn has a Roman amphitheater. So I visited that one. Also south of Etretat is the cider route. And it's actually, I think it's about 60 kilometers round trip. Mm-hmm. And you can stop in the various beautiful towns or to some of the producers and have tastings of cider, of Calvados. And one of the towns, which is very famous, is Pont-l'Évêque.
Yeah, Pont-l'Évêque, yeah.
people know it for the stinky cheese.
Right.
It is my least favorite cheese. I hate it. I hate the smell. The taste is fine.
Right.
Do you think it stinks?
It does stink. Yes, it does stink.
But it's quite famous.
But you can, oh yeah, very, very, and you can find it at even a little grocery store will have it. It's
right.
Yeah, it's famous.
But anyway, so hopefully there's a new, place that's called the Calvados Experience, and it's in Pont-l'Evêque. So maybe Pont-l'Evêque will no longer have this stinky cheese reputation.
But a Calvados.
It only opened about a year ago, and it's basically, obviously, promoting the Calvados region, but the production of Calvados, which is an apple brandy.
Yeah.
I personally find it too strong.
Yeah, I can't drink the stuff. It's very, very strong. Not very sweet at all. And
not really. I mean.
Yeah, I bought... I can't remember where I was. Oh, maybe in Bayeux. That's what it is. In Bayeux,
yes,
they had some locally made Calvados. So I got some for my husband, and he drank it up. But I tried it, and it wasn't a big bottle,
yeah.
But I was surprised, because after trying it, I was like, well, this thing is just going to sit in the cupboard forever, because nobody can drink that. But he drank it, within a month or two it was gone. But it's just not, it's very strong. I mean, like if you like cognac or straight whiskey, whiskey is even softer on the throat, I think. Calvados is really abrasive.
At the Calvados Experience, it's fun. I mean, it's light. They take you through these interactive displays, and you go from room to room. And one of the displays is, it's like you're walking on a pond, and it's filled with apples. Oh. It's hard to describe. Anyways, so they tell you about how Calvados is made. Mm-hmm. And then at the end, there's a tasting, and you try 2 aged Calvadoses. Yeah. So that was okay. Fine, Yeah. And by the way, you can bring kids through, and they get apple juice at the end. Good. But what I did was I went to the other bar, and I paid for some tastings of Pommeau. If there's one thing I'm addicted to, it is Pommeau. Pommeau is apple juice and Calvados mixed together. Right. It's like a cocktail. It's good. Yeah, that's good. Oh, I mean, they say it's an aperitif, but I've also heard it's a digestive at the end of a meal. So who knows? I'll drink it anytime. Yeah. So I tried some of those, and obviously bought some to take home. Yeah. And of course, I've run out. And by the way, good luck in finding Pommeau anywhere outside of Normandy. That's Even in Paris, I only found one place. That's true. It's not something that you find frequently. That's true. But no. I've had it, but I don't know where I've had it. But I remember enjoying that. There is one restaurant in Paris called Pomme, named after the apple, where they specialize in apple dishes and apple drinks and apple desserts. So I loved it there. and Pomme. Excellent. So anyways, that's a fun place to visit, the Calvados Experience. Very good. And so you drove back following this Route des Abbayes, and you made your way back to Paris. Yes, that's right. And the shame of it is, I think I drove back on the 15th, and they were having the big World Cup celebration. Everything was happening in Paris. Yeah. So I didn't go into the city. I stayed at a hotel at the airport, which is kind of bad. I mean, sad, but it was crazy from what I hear. You couldn't have known that we were going to win. I mean, it's so rare. No. I've been in Paris many years ago when France was against Italy in the World Cup finals. And I was on the Champs-Élysées, and a friend and I actually went into a bar because we wanted to celebrate there. Yeah. We got a seat, we stayed there, and then afterwards there was a wild party at the Arc de Triomphe. It was quite something. Yeah. And fun. They lost. I mean, I think the French like to celebrate.
Yeah, did they? I can't remember again. So we won the World Cup twice, but I don't remember who was the other country we beat. It doesn't matter. I mean, I don't follow soccer, so.
Yeah, it wasn't the year that I was there. They lost, but we're still celebrating.
Yeah, French people, we're just like a party.
Yeah. So
very good.
It was a great trip because it was concentrated in one area that week.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
so
and
you could see a lot.
Sorry, you could see what?
So you could see a lot.
All right.
And
so
that's quite a matter.
Let's end with you telling us again about your website. I need to mention that you have been on 2 episodes before. That was episode 168 about the Loire Valley. And you have visited pretty much, so many of these chateaus that it's great because you can actually tell people this one is better than that one, because you've seen them all.
Yeah.
And then it was episode 86 of that I called Looking for Unique Experiences in France, and where you talk about running the marathon, the Marathon du Médoc.
Oh, yeah. That was fabulous.
Yeah.
Drinking wine at every water station.
Wait, but you probably drink a swallow or something. I mean, you don't drink that much wine as you're running. There's no way you can drink that much wine. Anyway, so I've had you twice. Again, your website is France Travel Tips, and I will link to that in the show notes as well.
Thank you.
And you should look it up because she has you have great suggestions for people. And you have this, and you have this thing for deux chevaux too.
Yeah, that's
and then the Citroën cars.
I still remember you telling me about sitting in one. It was like sitting in a tank.
Yeah, it's awful. Yeah, I mean, I know that they are popular and that there are these tours in Paris, where people go around Paris in a deux chevaux. But I'm pretty sure they changed the seats. There's no way they can have original seats. You sit in those things. If you're not very tall, if you happen to be a little short and a little heavy, you won't even see out of the window because those seats are like they're really thin, and you just it's there. I mean, when I was a teenager growing up in France, I had this dear friend who had a deux chevaux, and she gave me rides a lot, and so I was grateful. But afterwards, when I didn't have my driver's license yet, but then when my father let me use his old Peugeot, I used to always tease her. I'm like, well, Peugeot 305 is so much better than your deux chevaux. So we would have these arguments about who had the better car, but hers was more stylish, I guess.
Well, one thing I should point out, you should watch this. Jerry Seinfeld has a YouTube channel called Comedians in Cars.
Oh.
And there's an episode where he invited Gad Elmaleh, the comedian.
Yes.
To ride in one, and it is priceless. It is so funny because they talk about the car.
Yeah, we'll have to look it up. Well, French people have, I'm sure Gad has a much different, we don't have quite the romantic view of these cars
right.
as visitors do, but they're good looking. There's no problem with them. Anyway, all right. Did we forget anything important to mention?
No, I don't think so, except, people should not overlook visiting Etretat. I know the D-Day beaches and that whole area they're fabulous. Yeah. But don't miss this area because I'll tell you, I think of all the photos I've ever taken in France, and I've taken thousands, this is probably the photo of the Falaise is the most beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. You sent me some remarkable photos.
Yeah, I was really happy. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Janice.
Thank you. I really appreciate being on.
Yeah, I love having you on. You always have great tips. And next time you come to Toulouse, give me a shout out again, and we'll meet again. This time we'll do a meal.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Merci.
Merci à vous.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Thank you, Eleanor Matthews, for pledging to support the show on Patreon this week. And my thanks to all the other patrons who support the show month after month. Thank you for giving back. Visit patreon.com/join us to see the different reward tiers. And thank you so much for giving back. Patreon is Patreon. Join us, JOINUS. I published a Patreon reward this week on the intruders at the Pantheon, and there will be another one coming up early next week. Those are so much fun to make. And thank you, Mark B., for your generous one-time donation via the Tip Your Guide button on joinusinfrance.com. The green Tip Your Guide button on the website stopped working for some reason, but Mark alerted me to it, and I fixed it, so it's working again. If you just want to make a one-time donation rather than giving through Patreon, just go to joinusinfrance.com and look for the green buttons. And thank you to all the listeners who respond to my requests for trip reports. As a result, I've recorded a few episodes the last few days to be released in the next few weeks, and I have several more recordings scheduled. I really couldn't do this podcast without your help, so thank you so much. I love having regular people on the podcast so we can have real conversations about visiting France. I don't seek out famous people to come on the podcast. I mean, it might be nice, but I think too much of travel information out there is canned and it's motivated by hidden commercial relationships. I don't get any freebies from travel providers when I travel. I don't get any free hotel rooms, no free meals, no free tickets. And the people who come on the podcast don't get any freebies either. They paid their own way. They have no hidden motivation to make things sound better than they were. They keep it real, and so can I. And that matters a lot to me. I rely on the support from podcast listeners. Some of you are very generous. Some of you are not. Ah, well, such is life. Maybe someday you'll be convinced to make a donation. Either way, I want to keep it real. So why am I telling you all of this? Because I'm looking for more regular people to talk to me about France. I'd love to line up some interviews with foodies this time. People who visit France primarily to enjoy French food and wine. Maybe you want to talk about a great cooking class you took in France. Maybe you come to France and you rent an apartment so you can cook the French way with French ingredients. Maybe you go around trying starred restaurants. If that's you, email me, Annie@joinusinfrance.com, and we will set it all up. And if you want to help other people listen to the show to prepare their own trip to France, tell them that they can listen on Pandora, Spotify, Alexa, Google Home, YouTube, and joinusinfrance.com as well. And you can see all the places we've talked about on the website. Use the search button. You'll be surprised how many places we've talked about sometimes I don't even remember all the places we've talked about. Send questions or feedback to Annie@joinusinfrance.com. Again, there will not be a new episode next Sunday, so I'll be back the Sunday after that. Have a great week of trip planning. Have a great week in France, if that's where you are. Oh, watch out for May 1st. Everything will be closed. Gotta say that again, because people don't believe it. Au revoir. The Join Us in France Travel Podcast is written and produced by Annie Sargent and copyright 2019 by Addicted to France. It is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license.